Leo, if anybody is watching the news and listening, there's a lot of dysfunction up on Capitol Hill. Bet you're our Military Times Capitol Hill bureau chief, and we're going to cut through it today and see what is actually being discussed that is of interest to people in the military. So welcome to the show. Good to see you back.
No, thanks for having me back.
First up, the House Armed Services Committee has a relatively new quality of life panel that they created last year. Why did they create that panel?
Yeah, this is really to zero in on some of those key issues for junior enlisted troops, troops with families, some of the things that lawmakers feel have been overlooked over the years. So they're taking a close look at military compensation, particularly younger troops. What are they getting paid? Is it enough? They're looking at housing, they're looking at child care, they're looking at medical care access, things that they think will, could hurt families. Do they need more benefits? Do they need changes? And things that eventually down the line will hurt retention and recruiting if they can't get them fixed.
And they recently, last month, had a panel with, it was really interesting, it was with all of the senior enlisted advisors to each of the services, as well as the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And their topic that time was exactly that, your wallet.
The prospect of equitable pay and income is the foundation of our all-volunteer force and has impacts to both recruiting and retention.
It's crucial these men and women are fairly compensated for their dedication, sacrifice, and service they provide our nation.
Healthcare, housing, childcare, and pay and benefits are critical components of a ready and healthy force, and I'm confident that we can find common ground in a bipartisan way to do what is right for our most important military assets, our people.
Military pay and compensation reform is going to be one of those big problems that we need to start taking a bite at today.
We have not done a targeted pay raise for your military service members since 2007.
We're dealing with a defense budget that is inadequate, in my opinion. It's something we need to continue to put our money where our mouth is from the Congress side and make sure that we are providing that pay and compensation.
The quadrennial review of military compensation is underway, and I'm hopeful that the recommendations you hear from the individual services will be addressed.
And so you hear a lot about pay right there. Should service members expect a big increase in their paychecks anytime soon in the next year or two?
Yeah, so lawmakers are really looking at this. They want to put something in place this year to go into effect in early 2025, and really something focused on those junior enlisted service members, those folks who might be making less than $30,000 a year in base pay. And they say it's just not enough. They need to close some of the gap between those folks and the higher paid and officer folks who are in the service. Now, DOD has been somewhat resistant to this idea. As you heard in the clip, they've got this quadrennial military compensation review that's going on. That should be finished sometime early next year. When the report comes out, they want that to be the basis of looking at some longer term changes to military pay and military compensation. But that would push any targeted pay raises back to 2026, 2027, maybe even further. And from what I've heard from lawmakers on the Hill, they want it as soon as possible. They want it to start next year if they can, even if it's just some incremental steps, because they feel like the entire compensation system is just out of whack right now.
And as well as family separation pay, there's something kind of interesting there where, let's see if I get this one right. The Congress approved family separation pay increase to $400 from $250, but the DOD hasn't yet implemented it. Let's see what Tony Gonzalez has to say. We talked to him recently up on the Hill. He represents Texas.
The timeline should be now. Having spent 20 years in the military, having been deployed for years of that 20 years, family separation allowance is so critical to our military families. The fact that it hasn't been raised in decades is almost criminal. And the fact that we got it to 400, I mean, is incremental. There absolutely has to be more that needs to happen. They're not going to implement it immediately. I've already had conversations with several folks at the Pentagon. We'll continue to have these conversations, and I will push for them to get it done immediately. There's no reason why families should be put last in the military equation.
So you heard Representative Gonzalez there say that the timeline should be now. It's been approved by Congress, but not implemented yet. What's the holdup, Leo?
Yeah, the holdup seems to be that DOD is saying they don't want to put it in place right now. They're still looking at their full compensation package, and they don't know if that extra $150 a month is really needed to help cover the expenses of families who are dealing with the separation from deployments or overseas assignments. Representative Gonzalez was one of the key forces behind this when they included it in the annual defense authorization bill last year. And as you heard, he's pretty angry that this didn't go into effect. Congress seems convinced that that $250 a month just isn't enough to cover all of the extra expenses that military families are dealing with. But DOD says, look, we just can't push it up to $400 a month yet. That's going to be a big cost, and we don't know if it's really needed. So we're going to hold off for now. The way the language was written was not that they have to raise it to $400, that they should raise it to $400. They're authorized to do it. But I think some lawmakers now are looking at that to say, hey, do we need to change the language to say, put this change in place right now, because we weren't just offering it as a suggestion. We really wanted this to be increased.
Leo, we'll see how the conversation between the two plays out. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.